Okay, there we go. We'll try that again. We'll try it again. I may have... Yeah. That's cute. I like it like that. Okay. So, I titled this Foundation Building, Facing Fears About Money and Getting Real. So, I know that money is one of those things that folks don't always like to talk about, because it's something that, we were raised, we don't talk about money, we don't talk about religion, and we don't talk about politics. But obviously today we talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about, right? I mean, it's like we basically have no couth anymore as a culture. But I'm going to share some things today about money and about facing fears and about foundation building. So I had a really good meeting today. And I had to face one of my fears. So basically, I went through a period of my life. So I, first of all, come from a house of, a home of an entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur. My father moved to this country at 18. He barely had a high school education, and he started his own business. He started out as an apprentice, a plumbing apprentice, and he eventually got his own business and moved us to the suburbs where I grew up. For those of you all that don't know me, I grew up in a mostly white suburb, upper middle class, family background, blah, blah, blah. But because my father was an entrepreneur and because he had a limited education, even though he was really smart, but money was something that was very, and he was a Leo. So he liked to spend money, and he liked the finer things in life, and he liked to provide his wife and his daughter with the finer things in life, right? And he was extremely generous. So money was a very high and low situation. So there was never like a point in my life where like I was poor ever, but money was definitely like, there was like a lot of stress around money and a lot of conversation around money, right? And I was a child, so I don't know what the finances look like, but I do know that even though we had a lot of stuff, there was always this thing of like never having enough, which also could be very also American, right? Materialism. So money was always tricky. It was always there. There was always food in the refrigerator. There was there were things, but my father used to always like walk around the house like, I need some money. That was like a thing, right? And then when I went out on my own, I just didn't know about money. Like, but I'm actually I'm quite frugal actually. But I didn't know a lot about money. I wasn't as frugal when I was in my 20s, that's for sure. Yeah, I probably wasn't. But anyway, in my 20s and 30s, it was like this thing where I would work, but I wasn't saving, and I just felt like I never had enough, I always felt like I was struggling, and my parents had to like bail me out of a lot of stuff in my 20s, like most 20-year-olds, I guess, who were lucky enough to have parents who could help them. But I always had these like tremendous, like, again, like feast or famine. Never like it was never neutral. I never had a neutral relationship with money at all. So once I started to work regularly, I bought my house at 33, and I had a quote unquote good job in Atlanta, And then, and things were good. Like I also changed my name. And when you change your name, for those of you all that don't know, a lot of times your credit is linked to your name. It's not always linked to your social security number. So I changed my first and last name a long time ago, in like 2003. And unbeknownst to me, when I changed my name, that gave me like sterling credit for the first time in my life. Like it was crazy. It was like everything that was attached to my name just was like wiped away. And I literally was like started fresh with like amazing credit. So when it was time for me to buy my house, by then I was like way more frugal. So I bought a house that definitely was within my means. My mortgage was easily affordable at the time I bought my house. And then I lost my job. Well, the first thing that happened was my father passed away. So I bought my house, and I was in my house about 2.5 years. And my father passed away, I would say, about 1.5 years after I bought my house. And even though he was an entrepreneur, there were issues with the insurance, which happens to many communities of color. So my mother always worked. She worked for the state. And she had insurance, she had life insurance, but they were doing a lot of things to Black folks around insurance where they would sell you these shitty policies, and they would make these changes within the policies that Black folks typically didn't know about, because that's, again, something we don't talk about in communities of color, particularly, is money and credit and things like that. Maybe we're getting better at that now, but definitely not then. So my father passed away, and we were like, okay, financially we'll be fine because my mother had this life insurance policy. Well, come to find out, no. We actually got a call from the funeral parlor, and we were like picking out the best caskets. It was like, now it's like I can look back and be like, oh my God. But we went and we like picked out the best casket and the best this and the best that. And we were like, it's fine. It's all paid for because we have life insurance. Well, we got a call from the funeral home saying, in fact, he did not have life insurance. And my mother worked for the state, retired from the state, and had been paying for years. Forever. She was getting that money taken out of her check. And got the call from the funeral parlor saying, sorry, that insurance was canceled 2 years ago. It stopped because my father actually lived past the age that, I guess, because they figure, what age Black men die, whatever, what age people usually die at, blah, blah, blah. And my father lived 2 years before that time. And so the insurance was based on his, prospective life experience, when they predict how long you're going to live, life expectancy. So he lived longer. So the insurance was actually canceled. And everything was dumped into my mother's life insurance. So we had no life insurance. So that meant my mother and I had to pay for the funeral. Okay, fine. So because I had just bought a house and I had this great credit, then people had started sending me all these credit cards. And so then what wound up happening is that I wound up having to put a lot of the funeral expenses on my credit card. Okay. Then, like 8 months later, I lost my job. And so, new house, credit card debt, lost your job, shit got real. Shit got real. So, I was living in Atlanta at the time, and this was like right before the housing bust really happened. And so, I mean, like so many other Americans, looking for a job, trying to make the mortgage, very little savings, because I bought my house, I was 33 when I bought my house. So I didn't have a ton of savings, but I had this is my first real good job. So I was like, okay. And I also felt like I wanted to buy a house because I felt like I was this flighty artist, and I didn't want to be a flighty artist anymore. I was going through this phase. And also in Atlanta at that time, almost everybody I knew, and I'm not a keeping up with the Joneses person at all, but it was just like everybody was buying houses or selling houses in Atlanta at that point, and all my closest friends, and everybody was selling real estate. And I just had like bought into this thing of a house would make me stable. A house would mean that I wasn't a flighty artist anymore. And I felt like I needed to plant roots because I had moved around so much, you know, even though I moved to Atlanta from Connecticut, but when I was in Atlanta, I moved like, oh my God, I don't know, 8 times in the 13 years that I lived there. So I was at this stage where I was like, I want to have roots. I'm an adult. I'm 33 and I need to have a house. So I bought the house. Fine. And everything would have been fine if I hadn't lost my going through a funky part. So anyway, so that threw me into serious financial debt, basically, because it took me like a year and a half to find a job. And by the time I found a job, I had to get a job that was like thousands and I had taken a receptionist job. So I went from working at a state domestic violence coalition where I was making really good money to a receptionist at Habitat for Humanity in Atlanta. So serious pay cut, serious mortgage, and everything else that comes with adulting. But God is so good, because I'll tell you what, when I got that call to work at Habitat for Humanity, I had $12 in my savings account. And I mean, I just remember, and I know y'all can relate, and this is why I'm sharing my personal business, is because I just want to say that no matter what you're going through, you can come out the other side. And money is not, or a lack of money is not a blemish on your personality, on your person, on your character. And not having money doesn't mean you're shit, and having money doesn't mean you're the shit. Money is an energy from a metaphysical and energetic perspective. It is an energy, and it is oftentimes a manifestation of other things in life. So let me just say that. So by the time I went to work at Habitat for Humanity, my spiritual life was surely shored up, honey, because let me tell you what, I was at church every Sunday. I was at church every Sunday, and I was going to Hillside Church, and they used to have a church by the prison in downtown Atlanta called A Quiet Place, and you could go there, and it was right next to the prison, so it was like for people who might have had family members that were incarcerated, they could go and they could pray or whatever. So I went to the quiet, and it was open every day, and I would go to that quiet place. And I remember the first time I went in there, I was shook because I was about to lose my home. I was about to lose my house. And I went in there, and I just was, and by then, like, I didn't want to ask my mother for money. I was like, I am an adult, I can take care of myself, so I didn't want to ask anybody for help. And I did not. But I went into that place, and I don't know what I looked like. I'm sure I was like just totally shook. But anyway, I walked in, and the lady said to me, don't tell me what's wrong. Don't speak it. Here's a Bible verse. And she gave me the Bible verse. And they used to have like they had like a water fountain type thing in there. And she said, go sit over there and just say it over and over and over and over again until you feel better. And I sat there, I don't know, maybe 2 hours. And I just said that verse over and over and over and over again until I felt that peace come over me. And I remember driving by my mailbox, pulling into my driveway, and being afraid to open the mailbox because I knew that bills were going to be in there, and I just couldn't pay them. So I didn't want to see them. And I remember ducking bill collectors, and I remember payment arrangements with the mortgage company because they were about to take my fucking house. And And it was such a hard time. And the thing about money is it's like real easy to go up, but it's hard to come down. So it's like you get a certain lifestyle, even if you're frugal, it's easy to like go forward when you have money, but when you don't have it, it's hard to like back up to where you were before you had it. So it was hard. It was hard. I mean, there were days where it was like I was choosing between food and a light bill, or food and, you know, just whatever. So again, I'm not saying anything that other people haven't gone through. So anyway, I say all that to say that money is often a manifestation of other things going through your life, and it can leave a genetic imprint on you. Even after you get money, it's kind of like growing up a fat kid. It's like even after I lost weight, I still felt like a fat girl, right? It's just certain things leave an imprint in your spirit and in your mind. So I was like, I gotta sell this house. Like I gotta like get out of here, you know, because this house, and besides which it was a money pit. Who knew it was a money pit? So there was always something. The roof was leaking, or oh my God, one day the toilet exploded, and I mean, it just things that happen with a house, you know, responsibilities. So that imprint was on my spirit, you know, and so I was like, I gotta sell this house, right? And so I tried desperately. So I put my house on the market. And again, this was right before the housing crash. And my house would not sell. Like one of my friends, her mother wanted to buy the house. We got close to closing. She pulled out like 2 weeks before the closing. I mean, it just happened over and over. I just kept having these near misses because of my desperation. That's the other thing that keeps you from manifesting, is desperation and fear. So again, I was heavy into my metaphysical practices. I started working with Abraham Hicks and working with emotional guide points and vibration. Like I always was obviously into my metaphysical, but during this period, it just became stronger because that's what happens, you know, when you're in like a desperate situation. Desperate times calls for desperate measures. So I was like, give me all of it. Give me Ayanla, give me Abraham, give me The Secret, give me Dr. Dyer. Like I need it all. So, and it really changed my life, right? So, one day I was in meditation and Spirit said to me, once you sell this house, and it wasn't even about selling the house. It was like, once you get over this, you'll never have money problems again. And so in that moment, in that revelation, I also saw how I was making my house a burden, and how, again, I was afraid to answer the phone. I mean, such fear. I was afraid to open the mailbox. I was afraid. And Spirit was like, you've got to stop seeing this house as a burden. You need to see it as a gift to the person. I hope it helps somebody. You have to see it as a gift to the person who comes next. And again, Spirit was super clear. Like, once you get over this, you ain't gonna have no money problems like this ever again in your life. So my meditation changed. So instead of meditating and visualizing the house selling and fixing my desperation and addressing my fear, I started seeing the house as a blessing. And I started seeing the new homeowners walking through the house. And I started seeing how the house would bless the people who came into it, and how much joy the house would bring them, and all of those things. And that became my visualization practice, because I would meditate every morning for like 2 hours because I ain't had no job. So yeah, so that became a part of my practice. And then I got the job at Habitat for Humanity. So I shifted. I shifted how I saw the house. And just the way my house sold was just a miracle, which I won't go into today, but I will tell you that the people that, so the bank had taken the house from the original owners, and the original owners were the people that wound up buying my house back. So my house was built in 1972, And this man had the house built for his family. He died, they couldn't pay the bills, they lost the house. So there was already an energy of lack in the house, which I didn't know when I bought it. And then I moved in with my energy of lack, and it just went on and on and on. Anyway, it was miraculous. I got offered a job in California. My house was on the market, and I was like, I'm going to just step out on faith. I'm going to just believe that this house is going to sell. So I accepted the job. And when I tell you that I sold the house a week before I moved to California, I sold that house like my last 3 days at Habitat for Humanity. I did the closing papers at the fax machine on Habitat for Humanity, and I moved to California like that Friday night, and that next Thursday I had a check for my house. So miracles happen, and manifestation works, and visualization works, and Spirit was absolutely right. I never had those same issues with money after that experience. However, the imprint of lack was still in my spirit until today. So today, I registered my company, TheMagick Productions. So I moved to New York 7 years ago to make my play happen, to make my dreams happen. And I have been speaking, and I have written a book, and I have made a movie, and I have done a play, and I have paid actors, and I have bought movie equipment. I did all of these things, but I was too afraid to finalize the paperwork for my production company. Even though I have a job, even though things are good, that imprint of fear was still on my spirit. And I have business cards, I have Soul Requirements business cards, I have Soul Requirements website, I have all the things, right? But I was too afraid to register my company. Because even with all the things that I've done, I still had that fear that I was going to lose it all. And that, I guess on some level in my subconscious mind, I still had that fear of that foundation, building that foundation. Because the last time I tried to build a foundation and buy that house, I almost lost everything. And money isn't everything, right? I mean, you know what I mean? So really, I'm being dramatic. I didn't lose everything, but I lost a lot. And I had to start all over again, and it was really hard. And so that imprint was in my spirit. And so a couple weeks ago, I was with the music supervisor for my movie. And I was with my friend Jodine. They were at my house. We were drinking wine. We were talking about business stuff. Well, the first thing that happened was we did the Bergen Film Festival. And the first day of the film festival, I was on the panel, and I was talking about content and Black Girl Magic, and it was great. And then the second day, it was all about contracts and being sued and protecting your business. And I started to get really afraid, and I was like, I better register this movie. I better get my shit. I better get my foundation. I better register my company. Cause now shit's massively real, But I also just felt like the universe cannot bless me if I'm being fearful. I have to build my foundation. My foundation had to be tight. So I'm with Jodine, and I'm, with Carmen, and we're talking about business and talking about the artist that I'm in, that's going to do the soundtrack for the movie. And so we're talking about TheMagick Productions, and Carmen is like, so who do we do this contract with? Cause who do we do this contract with? Cause I've just been contracting with Zoe Flowers. Right. And so I was like, Zoe Flowers. And she was like, but what about Tituba Productions? And I was like, well, what about it? And they were like, you've got to protect yourself. You've got to protect yourself. And in that moment, I just was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you need to register this business. Like, it's not a big deal. It's not like, I don't know, like I had started to do it a couple years ago and then I didn't do it, and I just didn't do it. I started and I didn't fill out the paperwork right. It came back, And they both were like, look, I got a guy. They both had their own guy. They were like, he's great. You need to protect yourself. You need to formalize this production company and this, that, the other thing. And so I was thinking, and I'm like, my God, like, what is going on? Like, I'm a professional woman. I'm a professional woman. Like, I'm a businesswoman. And I've been a businesswoman for a long time, but I have not shored up my foundation. And I was embarrassed in that moment. Even though they weren't judging me, I was judging me because I was just like, what are you doing? You know? And so I got the numbers of their guys, and I just sat with it and sat with it and sat with it. And I was like, I wrote everything down that I had to do to build my foundation. And then it came to me, the universe cannot bless you if you're still in fear. You've got to step up. You've got to step forward. You've got to register this production company. You've got to do those things. Like, if it's a production company, it needs to be a production company. So then Tuesday Carmen came over and we were putting the music to the movie and all this stuff. And she was teasing me because she was like, you're Tituba Productions, your company that's not even real. And I was like, well, it's real on Facebook. Like, I have a Facebook page. And she was like, right, because everything on the Facebook is real, right? And it's like, you know, all those checks I wrote were real. But what am I going to get from it? Because I didn't register the business yet. So the universe, so I just was like, I know this stuff. I know this stuff. I know. So I just dealt with my fears. And I called the guy. We made the appointment. I went today, and I just told him I've been afraid to take that next step. And we just sat, we worked it all out. Like, we registered did all the paperwork, and got my little EIN number. And I just feel like this May 11th is the start of a new chapter, a new and exciting chapter, because I have formalized my production company. So Tituba Productions is now real. It was real, but now it's real in the eyes of the government. And we went through all my expenses, like all the money. Because then I was like, shit, like, I spent all this money on equipment and like all that stuff, and I'm gonna lose out because I didn't register. And he was like, and he was real, he's Haitian. And so he was like, this is what happens to us. He was like, you know what? We have these great ideas as Black people. We have these great ideas, and we are not taught in so many of our families about how to do these things in the right order. And we do the thing first, and then we go back. And he was like, you're doing this at the exact right time. And he was like, I'm gonna walk with you every step of the way. Like, this is what we're gonna do. This is, and I just felt like I did not feel judged by him at all. I just feel good. And now I feel like I'm excited. Like, I'm excited. I'm proud of myself. I'm not afraid. 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 I'm I'm not afraid. Don't be